Hey, it's Chris, Endeavor Deep Sea. What if I told you this was the best new game I've played coming to crowdfunding for the first time in 2023? It's that solid. Video over, right there. That's all you need to know. No, spoilers. Let's go into why I think it's that good, what you need to know about it, and whether or not it's right for you, because, again, that's the main point. Is it right for you? Let's break it down. Let's do this. Now, obviously, I say that with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I mean that as this is the best new game I've seen that isn't like a reprint or isn't a re-theme or an expansion to another game that's come out or anything like that that's coming to crowdfunding. Now, this is slightly different because this is obviously a sequel to the previous Endeavor. Now, I'll go out and say at the beginning of this video, I have no affiliation with the first Endeavor game. In fact, the first Endeavor game has never hit my table. So I'm not going into this saying, okay, well, I know this and here are my biases with this. Well, no, my bias is that I'm trying to be as unbiased and taking this game as its own unique game in and of to itself. And so that's where I'm going with this, is as someone who has no experience with Endeavor, as someone who has not ever tested this type of Euro style game, I said, okay, let's see what this brings. Let's see how I like this. And it really does a pretty amazing job at what it's trying to do. Now, the mechanisms, though, are the things that you're going to have to know about whether or not this is going to appeal to you. Because essentially what you're doing is you're taking your little cards here and you're building a little tableau of an action management style manner and going to be able to place them in a way that's going to allow you to action optimize as you recruit more little, well, we won't say seamen because of phrasing, but crew in order to best facilitate your exploration of the deep. And when I say explore, I literally mean explore, because you have 5 tiers of these decks that you are going to be putting down, creating 5 rows by 5 columns. And as you explore, there are going to be ones assigned to each depth. And they're going to have pluses, minuses, bonuses for doing everything that you're going to be doing, including exploring it in the first place, going there, utilizing your various actions at your disposal. And I'll be frank, this iconography is probably some of the most intuitive iconography that I have seen in a board game recently. And apart from me just holding them upside down for the camera, it really works. And you can see there's a couple different spots on this, and we'll talk over what these all are in a minute. But the basic gist of it is you have this nice little tray that contains all of the various crew members that you are going to be recruiting. But you're going to notice that in the upper right-hand corner of all of these, there is a star number. And with that star number, that is the level of recruitment that you can get, 1 to 5. And that is all based on your individual player boards. Each row here is going to correspond to things that are slowly going to be unlocking. The recruitment level, how many chips you're actually getting, how many chips you're returning back to your pile, and then how far you can explore or how far you can move. And nice little reminders on the side to begin with. Nice little iconography that unlocks it down below here with all of those. And it just works. There's no guessing. There's no, I'm trying to figure out what the pieces are in order to put the pieces together on my turn later on. No, the pieces are readily apparent. And that is just a sigh of relief nowadays when you're getting these more and more complex Euro games and you're not having to spend half the time trying to learn the overhead, and you can spend actual more time with the strategy. I can't say that enough, because if you can get more strategy, it's going to entice you to play it more. And you can see also that as you go across, you unlock bonuses, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You get extra subs that will allow you to explore, and then you get down to the end and you get these little power-up bonuses that we'll talk about separately later. But like I said, as you go across, you unlock more. But you'll also notice at the very top, it also contributes to the end game scoring condition for victory points. So you're having multi-use trackers and resource management all in one. So everything matters, because there's nothing more that I hate in a game like this where you eventually find out at the end of the game, or, you know, whatever mechanic is just highly underutilized and it becomes much less important. And, you know, I've had that with some of those games, even the more acclaimed ones, Unconscious Mind. Even there was one mechanic in there that I said, I don't really, I don't know. So the basis of this game, per the crowdfunding campaign page, is you have these scenarios, and these scenarios are all unique. They're all individual. And for just the prototype here, I have 2 of them. But what this essentially does is it lays out your starting tiles up here. It tells you place this one there and that one there, and then 2 random ones there, and that makes up your 3 of your 5 columns. You've got these individual scoring objective scenarios that are end game scoring, and then you have this various map that allows you to place your power tokens when you achieve them, which will either give you instantaneous upgrades, or potentially, if they are color outlined here, end game scoring points as well. Okay. You can start to see how things are going to be interwoven and interlocked there. And obviously, the other side is going to be slightly different in the pattern, slightly different in the objectives, slightly different in the setup. And again, like I talked about before, I have 5 of these stacks of tiers. And so they're all individually different. This one is 4,000 meters. Then you have 1,000 to 4,000. Then you have 200 to 1,000. Then you get down to 0 to 200. And then you have just the top level ones as well. And the top level ones I already showed you, they're over there. So as you unlock them, you will be getting bonuses. You get a bonus not only to when you unlock it up here, if you're the person that gets the exploration of that tile, but then anytime you go to that tile, you get the bonus, which is listed here next to where you're going to be placing your little submarines. And all of the other iconography on the tile itself is represented by the actions that you are going to be taking on a turn-by-turn basis. Now, this one has a little bit extra because you're going to be doing a lot more research on this one, but a lot of the other ones just even maybe have 2, where you're going to be either doing a journal entry, or you have the ability to either do some of that, or even just further exploration. And that's why exploration matters here, is because exploration is also going to gradually fill up. You'll notice that there are 3 spots on both of these tiles. And so what that means is you can only do a 3+ level here, a 3+ level here, a 3+ level here, a 3+ level here when you're exploring. Some of those may say 1 to 4, some of those may say 2+, some of those may say just 1. And so it's going to determine where you want to go, how deep you want to go, and how deep you actually can go, because again, it goes back to this thing where if you can't explore to that level, you can't explore on this. And so you gotta have some synergy going on between the 2. You can't be terribly lopsided on one and get away with it too easily, especially if your opponents are going back and forth. And then we go back to the actual crew themselves. The crew themselves have 2 different sides. A starter side, the blue side you'll see here, and then we flip one over and you get the gold side. And the gold side is upgraded in some way, shape, or form. You have an immediate benefit in the lower left, and you have the actions that it can take in the lower right hand, if you see here. And you can see now the comparison. And the nice thing is that it actually tells you what's going to be on the other side, so you know what's going to be happening here. So in this case, these are the 2 actions I can take. It tells me these 2 actions are on the other side. This is the immediate bonus. So when I flip it over, I already know. There's no guessing. There's no flipping back and forth. It's just a nice quality of life measure that otherwise just gets a little bit looked over when you're talking about something like this. And these are also your worker placement spots, where you're putting your worker placement, or essentially not even your worker, your disc, to take one of these 2 actions. And if it's a slash, well, then it's one of 2. Or in this case, I would actually get to take both the moving and the diving action. And so that's going to be how you're going to want to operate, is because all of these are available to everyone every single turn, as long as you meet the requirements. If you meet the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star requirements at the beginning of every round, you just get to take one. Awesome. Awesome. And I love that because it doesn't constrain you. You choose your own strategy. It takes the randomness of this out of it, except for the 5 tier, because the 5 tiers are all uniquely individual and separate and asymmetric. And so which one you get are they're slightly different, but let's be frank, you're not going to be getting many of these. And so it's not going to be the make it or break it in your overall strategy, but it is going to be the creme de la creme, the cherry on the top of your strategy if you can do it right. And that's why it's completely okay. But how you want to go about things, it gives you total ability to pivot on your strategy based on what's coming up with these tiles when you lay them out, compared to what worker spots that you're going to have available. And why this matters and why this is so important is it's going to seem like you have a very, very, very large collection of these discs when you start out. And you do. But the tricky part is, as I said, on this board right here, you only get a couple each turn. The other tricky point is you're only getting back even less, which means that when your tableau gets built with these crew members, you're only going to have some of your crew members open because others are going to be filled still from the previous rounds because maybe you get 6 discs total and you have 5 crew members, well, and you can only take off 2 discs. So which ones you do this round, which ones you take off at the end of the round, which ones you go for the next round, they're gonna be all very, very significant. And again, I cannot state how impressed I was by the fact that of the significance of each and every round. And self-contained 6 rounds? Holy cow. It's just a nice, fluid, lack of stalemate style of game. And what I mean by that is it doesn't overstay its welcome. You don't feel like it's dragging. And you don't feel like it's also too short. 6 is just a very nice number with this. It doesn't allow you to completely steamroll your engine either, which is sort of the other end of things that people don't want to see either, right? Like, I don't want my score to be like 274 to 363, right? And it gives you a nice mitigation there. The last aspect of the game is you're going to be having these journal cards that I mentioned. And you start out with a certain set of them that are, you know, this color. And they basically just put up little achievements that are going to give you special unlocks, either instantaneous abilities or endgame scoring conditions or other choose your own adventure, if you will, where I get this and then everybody else gets this. So I'll follow the leader pattern. And then the market just gradually gets replaced. But all of these, you'll notice, are also different colors, which are going to correspond to the different marks on the depth in the first place. And so again, correlation, 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 interwoven mechanisms. It works. So what does a turn actually look like? Just give you a brief turn here so you can understand the dynamics. At the beginning of the round, like I said, I just grab one of these. I take a look, what do I want to do based on the land that's in front of me, based on where I can go. I can explore, there's a journal there, there's a couple journals here, so there's not a whole lot to do, so maybe I do really want to explore. Who's going to give me an extra explore option? Who's going to give me an extra move option, allowing me to explore? You have your main starter, which gives you all of the starting abilities, so you can do basically a jack of all trades wild if you want, but let's say I want to use this one for the move and then this one for the explore. So let's say I take this guy here, then you'll notice in the lower left hand corner I get the instant upgrade. So then look at my board here, my cube all of a sudden starts here, it gets moved up 1 space. And so you put these cubes out here and they all start at the lowest tier and you can just gradually move them up. Now, on my turn, after everyone else has taken, I now have 2 of these tableaus. I start out based on this tile right here with 1 extra. And so then I start out and I get to be able to place 1 extra there, and then I have 2 total right now. So after I'm playing, I have to play 1 disc to the worker itself. And so, for example, I want to play this worker. If I want to dive, well, I'm going to have to dive, but I have to have the second disc in order to play it on here to match the dive. So my second worker isn't even used this turn, and that's how fast these discs get used up. And so it may seem like you have a lot of discs, but because you're having to place them in multiple locations just to get a single action, really the mitigation and the strategy becomes very important, along with the tactical, what am I going to do and when am I going to do it. Then you'll see that this says 2+ here. And so then I would go to the second level of these decks and I would say, okay, grab one of these at the 0 to 200, and then I can put it under any one of these 3. Now, obviously, I want to put it closer to my ship. And so if we move all of this up, then it goes under the my ship. And then I get the instantaneous bonus, since I'm the person who explored, of moving my green and my blue up by 1 space as well on my player board. Boom, boom. And either I can't do anything else or I choose not to do anything else, then the round is over. And so then you go back and look at this board. Okay, I can choose from the level 1 still. I have 1 disc coming to me. I can take 1 disc off of a worker placement spot. And, oh, I don't get my new ship yet until the blue gets 1 more level. So I look at my worker here. I put it on my multi one. I bring that back. I grab my new one and rinse and repeat. So that's the whole gist of the game. And you're just gradually putting out more tiles and gradually expanding this zone until the game ends in 6 rounds. So what do I think of this game? I mean, I already told you what I think of this game. This game is incredibly good. This is going to be on people's top 10 list of 2024. I'll put that out there right now. I have no qualms about saying this. I think the variability and the replayability, along with the very easy to read iconography, makes it just a sweet spot of not too long, not too short, build your engine, have enough strategy as well as tactical nature that it's going to appease people on both sides of the aisle that prefer one or the other. It's not going to veer too much either way and leave one side desiring a lot more than the other, because we've seen those games where the heavy Euros are pure long-term strategy. You screw up early, you're SOL. Or the purely, this is so much chaos that you can't plan your turn until it comes back around to you. That leaves other people very much desiring and wanting something different. And this gives a nice balance of the two so that it appeals to a much broader base as well, but it doesn't lose the strategy because there is still all of the information in front of you on a turn-by-turn basis that you can do to make your turn the best you can. Now, I will say that, like a lot of worker placements in that sense, at the higher player count, as you can see on these spaces, you're going to have more ships out. You're going to have only so many spaces on each of these spots. And so sometimes the spot you want, the spot you're going for, someone's going to beat you to, especially at the higher player counts when you get all 3 of your ships out there. That can't be denied. It's just a facet, a nature of this game. The pros, again, I will say this game reminds me more of Hansa Teutonica, if you will. That game is an all-time never going to leave my collection game for the same reasons. The overhead is straightforward. The depth of strategy is inversely proportional to the rules, meaning there's a whole heck of a lot that you can do on a turn-by-turn basis and having to adapt to what other people are doing, but still leaving you a broad scope of what you can do overall. And I love that. There is nothing more than I hate about reading one of these games, spending 20 to 30 pages on a rule book, and getting the depth of gameplay that this can give you with half to a third of the rules. And so I just love this. The theme, it's highly underutilized. Does it work? Absolutely. Especially with the diving mechanic. Love it. Where are people going to have some concerns? Where would I have concerns? Well, the scenarios. I mean, I have 2 scenarios here. I mean, right? And the goals on both sides of these scenarios. I mean, they're somewhat different, and that's nice. But can you have 10 different that they're proposing to be in the base game? And to be frank, these maps over here, they are a little bit less important in both of these scenarios. Did not find them to be as impactful on the end game scoring whatsoever comparatively to the goals and the actual board points in the first place. And that also at the same time means it's going to be a little bit of a tighter game, because a lot of people are going to be in very similar places on the player boards and with the goals, because the goals, if you tie, you actually, don't like completely lose out either. You tie and you still get a really significant benefit. So the question is, can you do that for all 10? I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing as well with this tray, right? You've got 3 level 1s, 3 level 2s, 3 level 3s, 3 level 4s, and a bunch of level 5s. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple more at the lower levels. Just so that after you get, say, not that any of you do this, half a dozen games in, a dozen games in, you might want to see some variability here. Because I could see some, I always get this, I always get this potential, but I don't know. And so just having even one more in each of these columns so that you could sub it out, sort of a la a Dominion, if you will, right? Just a little bit more rotation there, because I'll say at the opposite end of the spectrum, the fives are really hard to get to, and they're almost like the high level zombie side skills, where unless you're playing a really, really long game, or unless your one goal is to get to that, they're almost, in my opinion, at least in these 2 games that we played, underutilized or not able to be fully utilized to the extent. I mean, the whole part about having these cool actions with all these cool powers, right? Or all of these additions that you can get is to be able to actually use them in the first place. And if you can't get to them and use them on any sort of, not consistent basis, but relatively, even if you want to say small amount of times that you play it overall, you just got to be able to get them. And if you can't get them, it's anticlimactic of having them there in the first place. You know, it's tempting because it's always out of reach and you can't ever get to it. I mean, that also eventually becomes a turnoff. Now, you can play this game cooperatively as well. Didn't play it cooperatively as well. It has cooperative goals, though. So you have to have, you know, a certain number of players with a certain length, or a certain number of players at 5 depths, if you will. You know, so things like that they're going to be. But I would argue that I don't really see it working as well cooperatively, because I think you could game it a little bit too much with this. And I think this is a competitive game that I would only play competitively. And I say that as someone who loves cooperative games as well. Could you make it work? Absolutely. Would it be quite as fun with some of the dynamics? I don't know. I think part of the fun dynamic of this game is that you're trying to outdo your opponent better. And I don't know if this would just be as fulfilling for me, personally speaking, again. The other thing that I can see people not liking is some of this journal stuff. Like I said, the 3 colors with the journals. There are just times where the tiles you pull and the journal cards that you have face up don't match colors. And so that element could be a little restricted. And the DNA in combination with the actual materials you're gathering, because DNA is a whole nother resource on the lower part of this board, in the lower right hand corner here, that I didn't even talk about, that you're managing. And sometimes the DNA is a little bit harder to get and you're sacrificing. And can you min-max it? I don't know. That's not my area of specialty. This is not my style of things normally. But I could see that being a concern, that is probably the one element I felt was a little bit less overall connected, but not any necessarily less meaningful, just because I'm not the best at self-analyzing that completely. So I'll put that out there as a whole. I really like the double-sided workers. I think that's intuitive. I think it's very complementary to what this game is offering, and it works very smoothly. I love the fact that they make it so you can see what's on the other side before you even have to flip it to the other side. And I really like the action tableau system of moving these discs onto spaces, onto the workers, onto the spots, on the board themselves, and then only being able to get back some of them in order to really force the decision making to be a lot more difficult, but at the same time, not time or analysis paralysis consuming. So overall, I am just really, really pleased by this game. And if you want deluxeifications that they're putting out with this, I would say get it on crowdfunding. If you have any interest in this game, though, I mean, I will tell you right now that, like I said earlier, this is going to be one of the best games of 2024 on a lot of people's lists when it becomes more widely available. It's just whether or not you pick it up on crowdfunding or you pick it up later at retail. So, and that's always up to you. Don't FOMO. Get what's right for you. So, either way, that's it. That is Endeavor Deep Sea. Thank you, Burnt Island Games, for sending me a copy in order to talk about it in the first place. And hope this was helpful for helping you make a decision. Stay classy. Have a great freaking fantastic day. See you around.